Alright, so today I'm going to be going over some of the key concepts. And before I do that, I wanted to quickly talk about what David Weiss used to discuss in his webinars. You'll see them on YouTube. You can look them up. There's like I think three or four of them there. And one of the things he had discussed, which was really important, was shortening of the thrust along with climactic volume. So the combination of both shortening of the thrust and climactic volume, and the way he illustrated this was he would start with with this point and figure, and then he would move to the wave charts. So I wanted to show this. You see when it goes up on 31, then it goes back down on 35, and then goes up on 49. And look at the thrust. So this behavior is something that David used to explain, and I'm just going to reiterate it because it's important. Why is it important? Because of what it means. It means that someone used the up wave to distribute, meaning they're taking short positions on the way up. Smart money's taking short positions on the way up at the best prices. After that, you usually get a change of behavior on the way down. But anyway, there are two things here. One, market goes up on 31, then come back down 35, then goes up on 49, and in this situation, the effort is 49, meaning the volume is 49, and the reward in terms of a higher high, aka the thrust, is $1. So all this volume, and what do you get for it? You get $1. This is a shortening of the upward thrust given a lot of volume, and its interpretation is smart money is taking short positions on the way up. Alright, so it's the combination of two things. You can consider it like shortening of the thrust with the climax, or you can consider it shortening of the thrust with the effort reward. It doesn't really matter how you understand it. The point is there is a shortening of the thrust and there's a lot of volume. And because that volume only yields a small amount of thrust, its interpretation is smart money's taking short positions on the up wave. So this is something that David used to explain, and you'll find it on YouTube on some webinars that he's done. And this, if you're Wyckoff, if you know about it, then you'll recognize this chart immediately. So after that, the market goes down, and then it goes up on small waves and eventually cracks. So the question is now, can you learn something from this today and apply it today and utilize it today? The answer is a big fat yes. Alright, and what I'm going to do is show this behavior, meaning the shortening of the thrust with high volumes. Shortening of the thrust with high volume, indicating that distribution is taking place, or they're selling on the up wave, or short positions are being taken, however you want it. The way David explained it was this was effort, and where's the reward? It's only one brick, one box, a slightly higher high. So he can explain this situation from an effort reward standpoint with a shortening of the thrust. So these two behaviors, shortening of the thrust and effort reward, or shortening of the thrust with high volume, or shortening of the thrust with a climax, however you want to understand it, understand what it means is selling on the way up. And then look at the pullback afterwards, and then the attempts to go up, which would be feeble, indicating weakness, and a crack, meaning the trend has changed. Alright, so now the next step is to show this in markets today. So in order to do that, what I'm doing here on the right hand side is I have shortening of the thrust on the up waves indicated by the orange bars, and shortening in the thrust on the down waves indicated by the black bars. And along with that, you have volume on the lower pane. Green volume is obviously volume on the way up, and red volume is volume on the way down. So let's start observing any trend. Just take any trend. You'll note there's a lot of thrust and a lot of volume. So this is definitely not a situation where you have a shortening of the thrust and a lot of volume. So we're going to continue examining thrust with volume, looking for a shortening of the thrust with a lot of volume. The next one, you have less thrust and less volume. Is this the same thing? Obviously not, because you have shortening of the thrust, but you don't have a lot of volume. You need a lot of volume and shortening of the thrust. So we just continue, and then you have here this this wave here. This has shortening of the thrust, but is it a lot of volume? No, it's not a lot of volume. What does that mean? It does not qualify. So we continue, ding, 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 ding. Here, you have a small thrust. You have a small thrust. It's approximately same as the last thrust. But what do you notice that's different about this than the prior up wave here? The thrust that it created was accompanied with 78 volume, whereas the thrust here is accompanied by 98 volume. The volume goes from 78 to 98, yet the thrust is the same. Same amount of thrust, but much more volume. So this is a problem for the bulls, because this wave is being used to create short positions. Yeah, the short positions were over here, but whatever. So there's a problem here for sure. And it's very evident actually in the next break where you have that 60 volume that, you know, they're basically selling the breakout. That's all it was. It's like take it to a higher high, trap, sell. Okay, now putting the pieces together, you see a shortening of the thrust and increasing volume that's bigger than 1, 2, 3 prior up waves. So there's more volume than the 3 prior up waves and no more thrust than the prior thrust from high to high, which had 78 volume. So this is more volume, less reward, more effort, less reward from high to high, indicating a similar situation of effort reward, if you want to call it that, or whatever you want to call it, but it's basically a problem for the bulls. All right. Now, what helps this even further, because you're not just looking at one behavior, you have to read a story. That's just the way Wyckoff works. You cannot just look at a quick indication like, okay, red crosses green, or a sequence of candles, you know, like those patterns. That's not Wyckoff. Wyckoff is reading the distribution, because distribution is a process. It's not just one bar, although distribution can occur on one bar. I've seen it many times. But it doesn't mean that the entire distribution is done. So it's always a story. So the first part of the story is we have a shortening of the thrust with increasing volume. The second part of the story is what happens afterwards with heavy supply. Heavy supply and a little bit of follow through. So this should immediately get you thinking, oh, maybe they're selling on the way up and selling on the way down. Okay, is there any, so that's the second piece. Is there anything else that adds to the story? Yes, the amount of volume here on this brick is 60, which is bigger than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 bricks. So that one brick has more volume than 17 or 18 bricks. So we have three pieces of the story. One, a shortening of the thrust on a lot of effort. I mean, it's not a lot, but it is increasing effort. That is more than the prior three up waves. It is a failed breakout. There is immediate selling after the failed breakout, and heavy selling after the failed breakout, which takes out 1, 2, like 3 or 4 prior lows. That together is forming a bearish story. That together will create a story about distribution. That there was effort, shortening of the thrust to create a false breakout, which was sold heavily, cracking the prior lows and making a slightly lower low. This bearish story speaks of distribution, and it speaks of a turning point. So you see how the various mechanisms or various behaviors are being piecemealed together to create that bearish story. So now the market tests and goes down. Now one more situation. So after it makes this lower low, what do you notice? A lot of thrust, a lot of volume on this black thrust down and red volume low. And it continues. Here you have here it's like really evident. There's a situation here where you have the same thrust amount as before, right? It's just a breakout, slight breakout over here. But look at the volume. This volume here is bigger than the last 14 up waves. Does it make a lot of thrust? Or does it just run the stops above these highs that are placed there after this lower low is made? So it just pops up. There's a little bit of thrust, a hell of a lot of volume, more volume, and still, though I'm cautious, I want to see what happens afterwards. Lo and behold, on the pullback, increasing volume. Is there a chance that they're selling on the way up and selling on the way down? You bet there is. And then the final nail right here, which shows their hand like with enormous amount of volume, 390. So you can see the increasing selling pressure here, increasing selling pressure here, and a lot of supply here. You know what happens? You have the market basically tests up again, and we're gonna take another look. Okay, so now let's observe again the thrust and the volume. Market pops up, low volume. All right, it goes up on this thrust, low volume. The same amount of thrust later, but look at the volume. This had 22 volume, and I think it gave like a couple of cents or whatever, 10 cents, whatever it is. And then the same amount of 10 cents, but instead of 22 volume, how much volume? 141. 141. Now tell me, does that ring a bell? At least when you're comparing thrust with volume, you can say that this is a diversion, because there is a lot of effort and not a lot of reward. So the reward is diverging from the effort. You could at least think of it from that perspective. The reward in terms of thrust is very little compared to the volume, which is a lot. More volume than 22 up waves. And what happens? It breaks on more volume. Selling pressure from 50 to 155, indicating again that they're selling on the way up. And now, what else do you see? That here's the selling, the 88. Right there. See? Right there. That is more brick volume than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. 31 bricks. Is this clear that there's a lot of effort and that this brick, which tried to break out above the prior high, was sold into, and the market went down afterwards, indicating that as the market went up on this break, sellers stepped in and continued to press it down on this wave here that has a lot of volume. And what happened after that? It got slammed. Market went down, right? So what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to teach basically what David was trying to get across, which is the concept of effort reward materialized as shortening of the thrust and volume, high volume, which he termed together as a form of effort reward, where you had a lot of volume indicating a lot of effort, but not a lot of reward in the thrust from either high to high or low to low. So this is a lesson to today. If you want to learn more, there's just go to YouTube and type David Weiss Wyckoff and start watching those webinars, and you'll see that chart, that point figure chart that I showed in the when I started this video. And really pay attention to that, because this is one style of reading price and volume. You can read price and volume from the perspective of highs and lows, and comparing high to high in terms of effort, and then comparing the amount of volume there is. Understanding that when you have a small amount of progress from high to high, it is a shortening of thrust, and when it's accompanied by a lot of volume, there is a possibility that sellers took a short position on that higher high, and they're using the higher high to sell at the best prices, and then after that looking for confirmation in terms of a turning point that makes a low, indicating that sellers, after taking that position, that short position on the way up, are also taking that short position on the way down. Thank you all. Have a good weekend, and keep studying. Thanks. Bye.